Matthew, I don't know if you spent much time doing any data preparation. Are you familiar? There's a tool called Mockaroo. Have you ever seen or used Mockaroo in the past?
I don't know Mockaroo, and I'm sure some of our listeners also don't know Mockaroo.
If you had ever spent a significant amount of time needing to massage the data behind your demonstration to look a certain way, there's a good chance you've used Mockaroo. Now, full transparency, the last 4 or 5 years of my pre-sales career, I didn't have to touch it anymore because we were getting to the point where we had systems in place to synthetically change and adjust the data. But what Mockaroo is a dummy data generator. And it's pretty sophisticated. You can set up rules and what the fields need to look like, and it would do the work of creating gigantic dummy data sets that you could load in. And I got so proficient in Mockaroo, it was actually on my resume for a while that this is a skill set that I have because that's how important it used to be.
Coming up with fake data.
Yeah, because that historically has been such a huge part of what it is to be a solutions consultant. And I'm sure there are still some people today that Mockaroo or similar tools is a fundamental part of the skill set they bring to their job. And that's what we're talking about today on the Presales podcast. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jack Cochran, General Manager of Presales Collective. And with me, my fantastic co-host, Matthew James. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. This is Matthew James. But now that I'm looking up Mockaroo, maybe I'll just replace my name with a randomly generated airport name at any time. Today, I'm Halifax County.
I mean, you know what? It's a fun little tool if you want to just see what it used to be to have to create these data sets. And fortunately, in our conversation today, we're talking about how you don't need to necessarily do that anymore. We talked with Justin McDonald, who is the co-founder and CEO of Saleo. They're a live demo automation platform. They're a partner of Presales Collective. So I've gotten to know Justin quite well over the past year. Justin comes with over 20 years experience in SaaS across sales and product he specifically was mentioning, and now as CEO of a company that sells to SaaS companies as well. He has definitely seen it all. He has built and scaled multiple high growth teams, technologies. He's really passionate, and you'll hear this. He's really passionate about transforming how companies think about their demos and how they approach providing value to their customers. And we get to hear a lot about not just Saleo, but about the industry as a whole, the direction things are going, and what you can potentially do to improve how you spend your time in pre-sales.
We need to stop paying the demo prep tax.
That's right. We talk a lot about that. The demo prep tax. And that's my key takeaway is, what is your tax? That might be one of the questions I ask is, how much of your time is demo prep tax?
That's amazing. Let's try it out next week.
Let's do it. Anything else you wanted to add about our conversation before we get out of the way and let people actually hear the conversation, Matthew?
I had a really great time chatting with Justin. Lots of good insights in here. We also touched on one of my favorite topics, which is being in person with our customers. So look out for that.
Yes. Let's get to that then right after the break. If you work in pre-sales, you already know a demo can make or break the deal. That's why so many teams are turning to Saleo, the industry's only live demo automation platform. Saleo gives pre-sales professionals the power to instantly customize every screen, every workflow, and every data set. No more fragile environments, no more demo drama. It's changing the way demos are delivered and raising the bar for what great pre-sales looks like. Saleo knows they're building with the pre-sales community, not just for it. This community is full of innovators, storytellers, problem solvers, and deal makers. And Saleo genuinely appreciates the passion and craft you bring to every conversation, every demo, and every win. So on behalf of Saleo, thank you for the work you do and for pushing the entire industry forward. Justin, welcome to the Presales podcast.
Jack, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Kind of out the gate, I love the topic that we're going to be diving into today, talking all about pre-sales demo technologies. I think it's a hot topic for everyone in the community. Everyone wants to kind of know, what does everyone use? I think that's a question that I see all the time in our Slack. Whenever we're hosting events, people are asking each other, so what do you use? What type of technology are you using? How are you making your team's lives easier? I know you being at the forefront of one of our key partners who provides some demo technology. I know you've got probably a lot of insights into kind of what's coming, not just what you provide, but also what other people are using is just as important with the rest of their demo tech stack, so to speak, or their sales tech stack even. So I guess as we hop into that, you've been in sales for, I think, over 20 years, so SaaS sales, and you've seen things evolving and changing over that time, what's been in your mind changing the most about how pre-sales teams operate today versus kind of when you started back over 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, by the way. It's mid 40s now, 20 years in. Yeah. And by the way, I've been in SaaS for 20 years, only in sales for a portion of that, right? We'll talk about the origins of Saleo and demo automation technology, as you kind of pointed to, Jack. But one of the things that makes me so passionate about the pre-sales community and just how Saleo came to be was I got my start in pre-sales, right? Back in 2005, even before it was really called pre-sales. There's obviously iterations and all the different nomenclature and titles. But I got my start, as a sales associate in pre-sales, giving demos all day, every day, being the demo monkey. So super passionate about pre-sales in and of itself, and obviously have run a couple different companies and have been in the business for a while, splitting time between product and sales, which is, again, a sweet spot for anyone in pre-sales if you can have experience on both sides of the house.
It's a great mix. What's changed the most? What's been so much, obviously, but what's been kind of the biggest technology change?
Well, I think what's changed the most is the technology. I think before we get to the technology, and we can talk more about that in detail, I think the sophistication and respect for the pre-sales role leadership is dramatically different. I mean, I remember when I started out, pre-sales was a terminology, but there's a lot of times there weren't even like specific roles and functions. It's just kind of operated under the sales arm. There wasn't as much structure, operational rigor, larger titles, if you will, right, that rolled up to the C-suite within pre-sales. So I think just overall, the profession has risen dramatically in 20 years. I mean, substantially, right? And by the way, I was groomed by the folks who run the ERP days and some really phenomenal pre-sales leaders back in the day that to recall what it was like for them and to see how it is now, it's just very different. They were on planes 24/7, flying around doing in-person demos with big enterprises that required 2 or 3 weeks of prep, right? Whereas now a lot of SEs and solutions consultants pop on Zoom and they do 8 a day. So it's just the profession has changed dramatically because of the selling motion and the state of the world. But what has changed the most is by far the technology. I mean, it is unbelievably different. It's just unrecognizable.
My start in sales was only a little over 10 years ago. And even in that time, you're absolutely right. The difference in just the amount of work you would do prepping for one conversation would be multiple days of work versus, now it's oftentimes you've got a few hours set aside that you can dedicate, maybe, if you're lucky, to that big account. So it's a very different world.
It is. Like a lot of the efficiency gains that are out there is, technology's changed quite a bit. The actual applications and tool stack that's available for pre-sales actually exists. Like if you look back in 2005, even like up and through 2010, 2015, there's really nothing there, right? So I think the biggest change is there's actually technology in an entire industry and market that has evolved and been created to support the pre-sales profession, which had not existed. There was some open source free tools out there, different extensions you could download, right, and hack your way through different things, but there was not an actual market dedicated to the profession, which has been it's been really great. Obviously, Saleo is at the epicenter of that in the demo automation space. Us being the number one live demo automation technology. But it is fun. I mean, even in the past 4 or 5 years that the category has been around, just to see that evolution and that turn of the crank has been substantial, especially with a lot of the AI native applications coming out and how, the LLMs have just completely transformed what's possible, even in demo automation.
I'm kind of interested. I almost wish I could go back and see the history books of what those first applications look like, because you're right, we've come so far. When I think about prepping for a deal today, I'm going through at least 2 AI models of asking what we've done with the partner internally, what they're looking like externally. And we've come a long, long way. So I guess we've touched on this. How we prepare, how we approach these accounts is different. There's this stat out there that pre-sales teams spend only 17% of their time with buyers. This is a crazy stat, by the way, because that's a lot of time. 83% is not with your buyers. So what do we think about that? And how do we start shifting it towards more time with our buyers?
That stat is well-founded. And by the way, I think it's even lower. The 17% is pertaining to the sales team, right? Not just the pre-sales team. So if you extrapolate that down to just pre-sales, I would argue it's substantially lower than 17%.
I mean, there's definitely been a meeting that's happened without the pre-sales team, right? At least one, probably more.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of calls that happen with the AEs and the sales team that pre-sales does not need to be involved in. Early on in discovery and demo and whatnot, but just the commercials, building champions, doing additional discovery, right? There's a lot that happens with the AEs outside of the SEs. But again, all of that computes to around 17% of the time that you're with the buyer, which means, hey, if you're not with them, what do you need to do to empower, equip, and make sure that you are presenting the most amount of value that then they can effectively communicate internally, because you're not with them most of the time. So that's a big risk factor.
It's a lot of time. The thing is, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. While at the same time, knowing, as we're saying, you might be giving up to 8 demos a day. A lot of the work that comes with actually a modern sale is happening with time that you're spending away from your customer too. A lot of the prep you have to do, a lot of the back and forth happens beyond that. I think it's not necessarily bad though, right? It's not necessarily bad. I mean, there's definitely strategy you want to take into prepping for making sure you're being in front of the customer the right way. But I definitely think we can find ways to start giving back. And I think one of those key ways is to look at what we're actually doing on prepping for those meetings that we're having. We mentioned this before. It's gotten significantly better than it used to, right? I remember preparing for a demonstration for days before getting out in front of the customer. And this is something I've heard you actually mention before, Justin, in other conversations about demo prep tax, right? The idea that a lot of the time that we spend just doing the tasks that need to be done to get a demo into the state that it needs to be in order to properly fit a customer situation or what we want to show them, that's a tax on our time. That's a tax on potentially a lot of that time that we need to be giving back. I'd love to hear from your perspective, though, where did the idea of how you've described that come from? And how do we start to think better about reducing that demo tax?
I love to discuss the demo tax because I think it's very impactful and it's something that all SEs and executive leadership needs to understand. Before that, just really quick, one other footnote, Matthew and Jack, as it relates to that 17% of the time with the buyers. I think the reason we say that, I think if you had to kind of reduce it down, is we want to spend more time with the buyers, right? Our greatest asset and the thing that's lacking the most this day and age is just face-to-face time, right? In the age of AI, and this isn't, we haven't talked about this, it's not on the agenda today, but the relational capital, your ability to build relationships, interact with the buyers, like that is what is going to separate the good from the great in the future, pre-sales and sales. Especially in the age of AI, like you have to be exceptional at building relational capital, building relationships, navigating the sales cycle and the bureaucracy and the red tape. But ultimately, all of this leads to like, how do we get that 17% up, right? How do we spend more time with the buyers? And ultimately, that means to do that, you need to provide value. They need to have interest. And so if you want to spend more time with the buyers, then you just really need to understand how to provide sufficient value, how to structure the sales cycle and the communications and the engagement in a way at which they don't feel threatened. They feel like you're trusted partners, orchestrating a strategy with the ultimate outcome of spending more time with the buyers is critical. And so it's just all about how do we provide value? What would make them want to show up, to sacrifice their time, to spend it with you? And so everything needs to be kind of orchestrated, crafted, and extremely intentional to be able to accomplish that.
Yeah, while we're here, I want to take the chance to touch on that some more because I know the most strategic deal that I've ever been a part of, there was one specific evening that we spent with that partner that was massively pivotal for the deal. And that was not a Zoom meeting, by the way. We were not on Zoom at 8 p.m. It was in person. So Justin, is there a deal or a time that you can think of where there's a standout moment of when you were in person with someone that you then ended up working with?
Yes, a tenfold. And I would say we have a story every single month of how an in-person interaction has completely changed the course of a deal or the relationship. There was one in particular that for me, again, as a co-founder and obviously leader of Saleo, every interaction that I have in person is obviously very important. We care deeply about our customers, the partners that we get together with, like all of that stuff. It transpires differently when you're in person, very much so. And I obviously can't disclose all of this, but there was a time this year where I got together with a particular partner. And if I would have not had that in-person interaction, it would have been fine. But what happened was it unlocked so many different doors, so many different opportunities, so many conversations and triangulations of connections and mutual interests that would have never, ever have happened if we wouldn't have been in person. It just wouldn't have. I wish I could talk more about it, but it opened up doors and a relationship that has contributed to just a really great year at Saleo. And it's been just really great for us. So yeah, so the in-person, I don't care if you're a CEO or an SE or an AE or, a pre-sales leader, get in person. It may seem like it's a waste of time to get on that plane and it's nice and comfy to put your feet up and do a Zoom call in your pajamas, whatever it may be, but it will pay dividends. It is extremely fruitful. So I would encourage everyone, SEs, sometimes AEs are lazy as well. Hey, I'll throw that out there. If they don't want to get on the phone, they don't want to invest the time, but there's just certain times where it just makes sense. And if you're on the fence about doing it, I'd encourage you to push over it and say, let's just make it happen. Let's get in person.
So one thing to make those in-person meetings really go well is we need to have our credibility walking in, right? So we need to actually effectively prep our demos and make sure that the formal parts of these meetings are really, really strong. So let's go back to what we were talking about. Let's talk about that demo prep tax. So what does that look like in terms of costs?
I always say, and I can't take credit for this, I heard this from one of my CEOs in the Compliance 360 days. I'll give Steve McGraw a shout out. He always says, we get our best ideas from our customers. And I think that's so true. I mean, the way that we structure our product roadmap, the research that we do, and customers are not always right. You have to be in front of it. You have to know where the puck is going, not where it's at. And you have to be visionary. And so there is all that. But also you get fantastic ideas from your customers. And this is one of those moments. So I also cannot take credit for the concept of demo tax. That was actually coined by Brian Cody. He's the vice president of sales engineering at Clary. He actually coined the term. They had been using Saleo for years. I think they reduced their demo prep time by 93%. And there was a bunch of other components and just really expensive, costly things that were happening prior to Saleo. And he coined the term. He's like, we're done paying the demo tax. So we actually got that term from Brian Cody, who's the VP of SEs at Clary. So Brian, if you're listening, thank you. Thank you for that. We still use it. But that's where that terminology came from. It was a term that we coined because I don't think organizations fully understand what goes into supporting, preparing, and maintaining the demo motion. Some people say, oh, it's just the SEs doing a little bit of demo prep, which we'll talk about that. I think that's probably the biggest burn and the most impactful area, which we'll talk about, Matthew. But then there's all these other ancillary components and a wide range of departments that are impacted. There's many different stakeholders that go into how do we support the demo environments? How do we support the structures and the DevOps and all the different tenants and variations that may exist across the globe? And by the way, this can vary based upon the type of SaaS company you are, whether you're enterprise, whether you're more PLG focused. Every one of them have their strengths and weaknesses, but they all have difficulties in maintaining just the tenant structure. If you operate globally, there's the localization aspect, right? So that adds more complexity. Then you have the hard dollar costs, right? You have hard dollar costs associated with hosting all of these tenants in these demo environments, right? They're not cheap, especially at scale. I've got some examples of customers, pre-Saleo, they were millions and millions of dollars on demo tenants.
Millions on a demo tenant, which probably maybe gets spun up once. And it's like, do we ever look at that again?
Exactly. Yeah. And then just one process that kind of spins down or winds down a demo tenant could have an effectual saving of six figures, right? We had one of our customers that saved $600,000 in demo tenant hosting costs when they started using Saleo. But yeah, it's obviously the bigger orgs spend more on it. Some it's not material at all, or it's not a big deal, but it's just, again, one of the variables that plays into the demo tax. The other one is product and engineering, right? The amount of product and engineering help that goes into running scripts and seeding demo data and making sure the updates are there and the product launches and all of these events and activities that I find are happening across an organization that people are just not privy to. And it's like 4 or 5 different departments that all have a play and assistance in supporting the demo environment, then it can be substantial. But I would say number 4, the one that is most impactful and costly is the demo data preparation for the SEs, right? It is, SEs are sharp, they're bright, and they're also served to make a good living, right? They're not cheap resources, nor should they be. And so their time matters greatly. The amount of time that we see SEs, and by the way, this was me. So I'll just give you an example of feeding into like the biggest demo tax and from a preparation perspective. When I got to my start as an SE at Compliance 360, I used to spend sometimes 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half a day, which is several hours per week, literally grooming the demo environment, creating hundreds of manual risk assessments just to get a pie chart to look a certain color that has the right terminology and the legend that I felt best represented the requirements, creating all these different incidents and investigations to have a table that looked perfect, that wasn't out of date, and doing all these different policies and queuing up in different workflows. It was a GRC application, right? So a lot of controls and risk assessments and policies, putting all these policies in place just so that I had a nice visual that could tell the right story to show how the policies go through this approval process. But there was no other way whatsoever for that to happen unless I manually did all of it. I was effectively implementing the application myself. So that was my experience as an SE. And since then, I've been at 6 companies in my career. Every single company I was at had that same challenge to one degree to another. One of the company I was at is now customers. They would effectively spend money in ads just to be able to have a specific dashboard look great during a demo, because there was no other way for them to get this dashboard to look good unless they actually spent money in account-based marketing to get it to look good. So these are all the different variations of that, but it is a pervasive systemic problem that every single company struggles with to some degree. I don't care who you are, it is something that you struggle with. And it is just so difficult to do. And then you multiply that demo tax of, okay, I got it looking great week 1. Most SaaS applications have data relevancy and data sensitivity of timing, right? Looks great today. A week from now, it looks like crap. It's back to just degrades, right? So you have demo data degradation that even if you get it in a good spot or engineering runs a script for you or whatever it may be, it will at some point in time start to look worse and worse.
You're giving me and possibly the majority of people listening a little bit of just flashback or maybe even current pain of everyone saying, yes, I've been there. And I'm sure if you ask people, everyone's got their stories of things that they had to do to try and massage data and massage the environment to look a certain way, which you knew was going to be potentially, like you said, throwaway work. Because I remember when I was selling analytics software, someone really wanted something that could showcase when there was anomalies in their data. So I had to go in and create anomalies. And I don't know if you know anything about creating and generating fake data. Data that you create tends to want to be normalized in that it likes to be even. That's just the way randomization works. If you're using some type of a randomizer to create data. So trying to create anomalies was just this constant headache that I had whenever a customer had that. I would spend hours trying to create recent anomalies that seemed reasonable enough to showcase and not have someone go, that looks really weird. What's that? And like, oh, well, I had to fake the data. Like, you didn't want to get caught in that conversation ever where someone's...
It's an anomaly that has to make sense.
I think that's the pain, is that you need to do this. And to me, it's akin to... So I have a background in theater before I got into the professional world. I actually did lighting, professional theater lighting way back in the day. And what's interesting is that in doing lighting for a play, you never wanted anyone to go, wow, the lighting looks great. The lighting needs to be great so that no one ever talks about it. And that's what I feel like we're doing all this work so that you hope no one ever notices it. And really well done data work never gets talked about. That's a really hard mark to hit if you're doing it manually.
Yes, totally agree. There's also this element too, where you can get a baseline, a kind of a Harbor Tour or Harbor Cruise demo. It's like, hey, I've got one particular use case that looks great. Like, it's generic. It's going to work across a ton of different accounts and verticals and industries, but it's pretty generic. It looks good, right? But then there's all right, if I'm an SE, I really, really am good at my job. I care. I'm trying to tell great stories. I'm trying to take what I've learned in discovery for this account and help that translate into a demo that really resonates, right? You may have heard me say this before. The demo data is the story, right? You cannot tell a great story and be a great storyteller as an SE without great demo data. It's not possible. Otherwise, it's just a blank canvas. It's a UI, right? So having that great demo data that allows you to tell the story is so critical. So if you want to accomplish that, the additional time and effort to personalize the demo data based upon an account or a prospect or a use case or a certain industry that you're trying to break into, that's just an additional demo tax. It takes more and more, right? Generic demo data, even if you can get it looking great, can only go so far. And so as you want to level up and you want to be exceptional at storytelling in your job, it takes more time and effort, right? And it's more of a demo tax. Does it pay off? Sure. Of course it does. Your technical win rate is going to go up. You will see it translate, but it takes more effort.
Yeah, so I think we have effectively defined the problem. Demo tax sounds bad. We have this new thing on the block, if no one's ever heard about it. AI is here. We understand that Saleo has just launched the demo data agents. So talk to us about how AI is actually changing demo creation beyond just, the hype that we hear around it.
For sure. And by the way, there's a lot of hype. It's just a lot of fluff in AI that's just vaporware. So buyers beware. So one of the things about Saleo, we invented this concept of data injection, right? We're the only ones that can do it. There's some folks out there that have enjoyed coining the term as well. But as it relates to true data injection at the API level, it's a great technology, but it was time consuming to create the demo data. Once you had it, you could adjust it, you could control it. I mean, it became a superpower for pre-sales. But one of the things we wanted to do with Saleo is how do you harness AI to allow the generation of that demo data to be exponentially faster? It's one thing to be able to control it and adjust it, which is typically not possible unless you're doing all those things we talked about on demo prep time. So Saleo has always been that. But we surveyed the customers and we said, hey, how can we actually use AI that's foolproof that can help SEs instantly generate demo data based upon who they're speaking to or use case, localization, currency, different verticals, industries. And so Demo Data Agent works within Saleo Live where you can literally type in a single prompt. It understands the context of the customer's application, where they are in the application, how all the data and the information is interconnected. And it literally generates the data instantaneously and then injects it directly into the live product. That's something we released earlier this year. It's been just a huge success. And we actually expanded Demo Data Agent into what we call tokens recently, which is a great capability. Salesforce, actually, you can go on our website. There's a case study on how they're using it, where if SCs or AEs want to quickly adapt a story with a single prompt, Saleo has a capability where you can add tokens in your live product, and then it propagates all of the data by industry, by vertical, by use case. It completely tailors it with the token set. So yes, moral of the story, Matthew, Demo Data Agent, a very practical, but also very powerful tool that Saleo has today.
I love hearing that. It's good uses of AI, I think, that we see, because you're right. There's a lot of hype out there. There's a lot of companies out there who are talking about, we have AI for this, we have AI for that, but it's hard to tell, how is it actually making a difference and how is it actually being used, or is it even real for that matter? When you think about kind of what's coming in 2026 and beyond, do you think, is it going to be more of that, more of the like actual good uses of AI? Are we going to see new trends evolving as we look at sort of sales and pre-sales tech for this coming year?
It varies by industry, but I would say as time goes on, the market gets smarter and smarter on what is real and what's not. I think that's happening in demo automation. We're seeing it right now with some other vendors in the market where it's a great press release, but when you start to use it, it may not work. And I think that's consistent for all markets, right? The innovators will slowly rise to the top. So I think that's key. What trends do I think will reshape pre-sales? Like, where's it going? I think you'll see a heavy emphasis on how AI can, from start to finish, make SCs more productive. I think that's a trend that you're going to see. And which, again, it goes back to our point at the beginning, Matthew, of just the relational capital and EQ. And I am not in the camp that I believe SCs will be out of a job. I do think that the time will be used differently going forward because of the proficiency of AI and the advancements in it. And again, I believe the superpower of pre-sales is your ability to really hone your EQ and the relational capital. I think that becomes more important. But I think the trends of automation and the pervasiveness of where it starts and then where it ends in the sales cycle is going to continue to be expanded. That spectrum is going to get longer and longer of how AI is used. And it won't be perfect in the beginning, just like any AI, right? The models get smarter, they get better, they get faster. Context windows get I mean, if you look at the context windows now, these LLMs compared to a year ago, it's unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable in the millions, where it was like 8,000 initially, right? So yes, I think full automation and agentic world is occurring already. And there's going to be a lot of asynchronous agents as well that I think will help greatly.
Absolutely. We're getting close to the end of our time here. Time always flies with these conversations. There's two things that I want to ask for. First and foremost, if people want to get in touch with you, or they want to hear more about Saleo, or maybe they just like, hey, they like what you're talking about, want to connect with you, how can people find you, get in touch with you, and hear more?
Yes, well, I'd appreciate that, Jack. We love PSC and do many different events with you guys every single month across the country. So if you're in person, we'd love to see you. But if not digitally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Justin McDonald. You can also visit us at saleo.com, SALEO. And we'd love to connect, right? If you're in pre-sales and you're listening, feel free to connect. We've got lots of great content, huge advocates for just the community and elevating it. So we'd love to connect with you on there, either through Saleo or myself personally.
Last thing, let's leave them with something good. What's the last piece of advice you'd give to someone? Maybe it's reiterating something that we said. Maybe it's something brand new. Well, what would be the last piece of advice you give to someone who's just going down this, removing their demo prep tax or trying to be in line with kind of what's happening in this next year?
I think the biggest piece of advice, and this has nothing to do with Saleo, I think in general, SCs, hear me loud and clear, and also don't take this the wrong way. Don't be lazy. work hard, like take the next level to personalize or elevate your demo, right? It's so easy as an SE to be complacent because you guys are busting your butt. Demo after demo, prep, you're being stretched. AEs need this, they need that. We are so overworked, right? But it's so easy to just kind of show up and deliver because you're great at doing it. But I would just say, go the next mile, take it to the next level. Don't be complacent. That would be my advice.
Great advice for all of us, no matter what we're doing. But yes, I think it's absolutely critical for anyone in pre-sales. Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today on the Pre-Sales Podcast. And I look forward to seeing you in person at one of the many events we'll be doing over this next year.
Thank you, Jack. Matthew, you as well.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you for listening to the Pre-Sales Podcast by Pre-Sales Collective. Did you know that we also post on the Pre-Sales Collective blog following each episode? Head there to read through information on shows you might have missed or find another past episode to listen to. For more information on the Pre-Sales Podcast itself and to listen to those past episodes, visit presalescollective.com/podcast.